This is a PowerPoint over human population dynamics. The crude birth rate is the number of births divided by the total population times 1,000. The crude birth rate in the United States is 14. As you can see in the graph, more developed countries have a lower crude birth rate than developing countries, such as countries in Africa. The crude death rate is the number of deaths divided by the population times 1,000. The crude death rate in the United States is 8, and as earlier mentioned, the crude birth rate is 14. Thus, because the crude death rate in the United States is lower than the crude birth rate, there is population growth occurring. Demography is the study of statistics such as births, deaths, income, or the incidence of disease which illustrate the changing structure of human population. Demography is used a lot in government, in policy making, and things of that sort. It can also be very important in disease control and other things. Some characteristics of developed countries are highly industrial, high average per capita GDP, a high education level, a high life expectancy, a low population growth, low death rate, lifestyle market economy, majority of the population lives in cities, and there's usually a high level of population health. You can see the developed countries on the left picture. In contrast, developing countries are usually highly agrarian, have an average income per capita, a low education level, lower life expectancy, a high population growth, a high mortality rate, export raw materials, a majority of the population lives in rural areas, and there's usually a low level of population health. And you can see the developing country on the right. On this slide, you can see the percentages. The percentage of global human populations that live in developing countries are 79%, and only 21% live in developed countries. But 80% of the world's wealth is controlled by developed countries, and you can see that shown in the picture with the old man holding the money bags, which represents the developed countries. There are several factors which led to population growth after the 1800s. Some of these were vaccines, antibiotics, and sanitation systems, which led to a higher life expectancy and a lower death rate. Another one is the ability to expand into new habitats and climate zones, which allowed us to expand more and acquire new manufactured goods. And some of those are energy sources, which allowed for more life in the new habitats. And modern agriculture led to a higher yield per land area, which led to more food and more people were being fed, so more people were living. Fertility is the number of children born to a woman during her lifetime. Women in Africa have a higher fertility usually than people in developed countries such as America. Fuel in developing countries consists of fuel wood and charcoal made from fuel wood, and they're used for heating and cooking for more than 2 million people in developing countries, and this leads to deforestation in these countries, unfortunately. High-income countries. A high-income country has an economy with a gross national income per capita above 12,746 US dollars. And you can see the kind of the distribution of high income and the income levels of the countries in the following map. Longevity is a long duration of life, and women actually usually live 5 to 6 years longer than men because of their way they live their life and their habits. These are the population profile graph or age pyramids, and their distribution of males and females in each group in certain populations. And you can see each of the different stages of the age pyramids in different countries and the characteristics that go along with each. You can see expansive, stationary, and contractive, and each of the different details that go along with them. Here are the population trends for developed and developing countries. The population trends of developing countries are the population tends to be younger, and the pyramid base is therefore wider, which represents this, and the pyramid gets narrower as age increases because they're less likely to live that long, and you can see that in the West Africa age pyramid. Population trends of developed countries are usually more uniform than developing countries, and people live longer in developed countries, and you can see that on the right of The total fertility rate, or the TFR, is the number of children born to an average woman in a population during her entire reproductive life. As you can see, the developing countries tend to have higher TFRs than developed countries. You can see the world population is about 7.125 billion, and it's projected to be 9.2 billion in 2050. And the exponential world population growth rate is 1.2% per year. And you can see how the population density is spread out in each of the countries. For example, China is very population dense, while Canada isn't very population dense, and the map reflects that.